not as murder, but as suspicious circumstances.
Suicide.
In actual fact, on CNN last week, they said, the Metropolitan Police said it could be the result, bear in mind this is the man's body in a duffel bag in his own bath, they said this could be the result of a bizarre accident. They're not really sure who could be responsible. Now his apartment is 550 yards walking distance to the headquarters of MI6, Military Intelligence Branch number 6. There's many branches of military intelligence. When you join military intelligence, you do not swear an oath to serve the people. You serve the crown. That means that you serve the Saxe Coburg Gothas. And if you decide at one point that you don't serve those people, you may end up in a duffel bag in your own bath. Now that form of murder is called a bag and drag spy murder. And what they do is that they put your body in the bath, they chop you into pieces, the blood, the liquid, all the heavy stuff goes down the plug hole, they put you into a bag, and then they dispose of you by taking you on public transport. It's usually lobbed into the river, lobbed into a lake, that kind of thing. This is what the intelligence services do, and this is what the intelligence services have been doing for a very, very long time. The beginning of the intelligence services started in the 1500s under Queen Elizabeth I. And it was started by Sir Walsingham, and one of the most famous spies and espionage agents was Dr.John who is a mathematician and an astrologer and an occultist. And if you go to the Science Museum today, you can actually see his crystal ball, and you can see the slither of polished black obsidian rock, which he used to use like a black mirror to actually see images of demons and angels and spirits. And he was hired by Queen Elizabeth to be a spy. And she hired him to choose the most auspicious date for the coronation, for her own coronation. And there is this link between the occult, the spirit world, secret societies, espionage, and the royals. And what we have in the 21st century now is the result of that, which is this kind of plastic, Blade Runner style, modern, hydrocarbon society, where tax is the main game in town. So in 10 minutes, that's just a rough kind of summary of where we are. So the next thing I'd like to point out is that it's important for all of us to recognise what the game plan of the royal elite are. Things that you see reported on the news seem to happen in a kind of happenstance manner. Oh dear, all of a sudden there's a recession. Oh dear, all of a sudden there's a boom. Oh dear, all of a sudden, something else has happened on the news. Everything that you see on the news actually comes through news feed agencies. And there's 5 main news feed agencies. The 2 most important ones are the BBC. George Orwell, who wrote 1984, used to work for the BBC. And the second most important one is Reuters. And Reuters is owned by the royal family of the Netherlands. Yeah, and 2/5 of all news stories that you see ending up on your TV screens have been provided by those news feed agencies. What you're watching when you watch the news is not really the news. You're not seeing, for example, a report every day that 26,000 children died in the last 24 hours because of preventable diseases, which is the truth of what's going on. You're seeing a kind of smorgasbord of stories, news kind of events and photo opportunities which have been cleverly designed to shape your perception of what is going on in the world, and also to shape your perception that, yeah, I'm watching the news, I'm informed. The reality of the situation is, like I say, and you can check this with the World Health Organization, United Nations, Greenpeace, Help the Aged. There are thousands and thousands of people dying every 24 hours through neglect, through preventable diseases like the common cold. They say that there's no cure for the common cold. Every pub has got the cure for the common cold, which is cognac and whiskey. No virus or no bacteria can live in your blood with alcohol in your blood. As long as you have above 36% alcohol, 2 or 3 egg cupfuls, you take that, that'll cure the cold. And yet they say there's no cure for the common cold. Thousands of children are dying where they could be cured. But that's not on the news. What's on the news is really basically the agenda of what they want you to believe and what they want you to think about. Now, coming back to this plan, I'll just say it sort of briefly now and then I'll come back to it at the end of my talk. Since the 1500s, there have been secret rituals being done at royal palaces, and these are actually part of historical record. In actual fact, there's not only rituals that have been taken on at royal palaces, there have actually been cults started at certain royal residences, and the most famous one is called the Royal Alpha Lodge that was formed at Kensington Palace. And that Royal Alpha Lodge has some very, very influential and very, very famous people as members. And through this whole series of historical events that have been going on since the 1500s, it's very clear once you piece together that there is a game plan going on by the royals. And what's happened is that spiritual entities that they've actually been invoking at these various kind of occult lodges in various royal palaces. I know this sounds very strange just to come out with this like this, but I've got to say it. Since the 1500s, they've been following a plan. They've been following a manifesto. The manifesto was written by Dr.John, and you can actually see a copy of it at the British Museum. And the manifesto was dictated to John Dee from spiritual entities, which we would call demons, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I. From the point of that manifesto, we've had death, destruction, pollution, wars, and an ongoing campaign to destroy humankind. And what happened is that Queen Elizabeth I immediately killed her sister, her half-sister. She killed Mary, Queen of Scots. Now, if you can imagine, historically, Queen Elizabeth, her mother was killed by her father. Henry VIII murdered Anne Boleyn. And so their daughter was then brought up in a kind of form of open prison. And you had Queen Elizabeth I, Princess Elizabeth I, and Mary, Queen of Scots. Elizabeth killed Mary, Queen of Scots, and what happened from that point onwards is a tidal wave of mass killings. Some of these killings perpetrated by the royals themselves have shaped history, and what's happened is that anybody that stood in their way, anybody that's criticised the royals, has been murdered. And they've had many different ways of murdering people throughout the ages: poisoning, fake car crashes, stabbing them, shooting them, you name it. Now, the important thing when you look at this history of stabbing and killing and poisonings and fake car crashes is that the Romanov royal family of Russia are the same family as the Saxe Coburg Gothas. The Schleißweg